Good morning. In the last class we discussed about these condensed explosives. Which were derived from hydrocarbon based fuels. We found that either NO2 or ONO2, that means either nitrate or nitro compounds, are added to these fuels, and we formed, let us say, nitromethane, we formed nitroglycol, we formed nitroglycerine, and also we looked at PETN. These were based on the alkanes. We found from cyclo compound we could form RDX and HMX. These were based on alkanes, these were based on cyclo compound, and again from the aromatics we formed TNT, we formed tetryl. We also formed two other substances, and these two substances were picric acid and TATB. These were the different explosives which we formed from the organic, which we call as organic explosives, or rather derived from hydrocarbon, which are essentially organic based fuels. The structure of these condensed explosives was clear, and we said we would study the other explosives based on inorganic compounds in the class today. When we say inorganic, instead of having to add NO2 or ONO2 to form the oxidizer which combines with the fuel to give the explosive, in case of the inorganic compounds we add substances like let us say N3, which we call as azide radical. What is this azide radical? N3 is unstable. Supposing I have N over here, it cannot be very stable, and the azide combines with, let us say, lead azide to form Pb N32, maybe to form AgN3, and since the N3 compound, namely the azide radical, is not very stable, it sort of dissociates into, let us say, Pb plus 3N2. Here you have maybe 2AgN3 forming 2Ag plus again 3N2. Therefore, it sort of decomposes and readily decomposes, and even slight heating is sufficient to have compounds having azide, maybe lead azide, silver azide, and other azides, to readily decompose and readily give out heat, and these become explosives. Therefore, explosives are based on azide. It is not only the azide radical, but also maybe the fulminate radical, CNO radical. When we say CNO fulminate radical, maybe with mercury you form CNO, and this again dissociates. It is not a very stable radical, and you have the fulminate radical, and these fulminate radical, you have mercury fulminate, you have maybe lead CNO twice. These inorganic substances, they sort of decompose fast, and not even if you have slight impact or let us say friction, small amount of friction, they readily decompose and they detonate sort of, because they readily supply the energy, and these are known as fulminate radicals. We have mercury fulminate and lead fulminate. Well, there is still one more. We kept talking of acetylene, you recall. You said triple bond acetylene. We said, well, acetylene is always not such a good gas, in the sense, the triple bond is not that stable. It had something like a positive heat of formation. It sort of decomposes fast. Its energetics was much higher, like dP by dTm was higher. Therefore, you can make use of the acetylide radical. What is the acetylide radical? It is this one, namely the CC, to give you something like calcium acetylide, maybe other forms of acetylide like calcium acetylide, silver acetylide and stuff like that, which again rapidly decompose, and these acetylides decompose even sometimes in presence of some particular, let us say, ultraviolet light, maybe in presence of some light impact. But impact is very sensitive. That means these fulminate inorganic compounds, explosive compounds like mercury fulminate is very sensitive to impact, and in fact a small amount of mercury fulminate when added to some non-sensitive compound, and it can be made into something like crackers, which if you throw on the wall it explodes. These are known as percussion crackers. Even if you keep on accumulating silver fulminate one on top of the other, the very fact that you accumulate fulminate itself decomposes them or makes it decompose. Therefore, you have radicals like azide radical, maybe the fulminate radical, maybe the acetylide radical. In presence of some of these metals, these form compounds which are known as inorganic explosives. The question you will ask then is, see, we talked in terms of these radicals which were based on inorganic substances, again metal to it. Why not use the organic substances as radicals? It is possible for us to think in terms of both aliphatic. What did we say aliphatic were? We said, well, you had hydrocarbons into aliphatic and aromatic substances. Well, in case of aliphatic, you have alkanes, alkenes, alkynes and alkadines, and in case of aromatic substances, you had the benzene, naphthalene and the extension of that, like let's say benzene, naphthalene, and you could have 3 of these benzene rings to give anthracene and so on. It is also possible to form radicals from organic substances. Let us take one typical example. Let us take the aromatic compound, let us take benzene. Well, benzene we said is something which has 2 alternate double bond with the hexagonal structure C6 over here, 2 double bonds. Now what we do is we add NO2 to it, NO2, NO2, you had one more NO2 here, you had an oxygen and a hydrogen. That means you replace 5 of the hydrogen, 2 of them by O and the remaining 3 by NO2, and this becomes what we call as stiffnate radical. In this case, the formula would therefore be C6 H 1H over here, O2, we have O and O2 and NO2 3. This becomes the stiffnate radical, and we could have, let's stiffnate Pb, then you have C6 HO2 NO2 3 twice, let's stiffnate, you could have silver stiffnate Ag into C6 HO2 NO2 NO2, because the valence of silver is 1. Therefore, you could have again inorganic compounds based on the stiffnate radical. Therefore, compared to the organic explosives, which consisted of maybe right from nitromethane to TATB through PETN, RDX, HMX, we talk in terms of the azides, namely maybe lead azide, maybe silver azide. We talk of fulminates like mercury fulminate. We talk in terms of acetylide. We talk in terms of stiffnate like lead stiffnate, and these are all inorganic based explosives. When we can now close the chapter on the chemistry of explosives by saying, well, an explosive substance could either come from the organic compound or from the inorganic compounds, and the organic compounds which gave us this, we have discussed it enough, came from aliphatic compounds, cyclocompounds, cycloaliphatic, from the aromatics like TNT, tetryl, picric acid, TATB, and of course tetryl also. When we talk of inorganic compounds, we talk of azides, we talk in terms of fulminates, fulminate radicals, fulminate like mercury fulminate, fulminates, we talk of acetylides, and maybe as an example of an organic, these were purely inorganic, maybe stephanate. Well, these are the different types of explosives. But all these explosives what we have studied are all compounds, in that within a molecule you had both the azide radical and the lead azide, let us say lead over here. Within the molecule you had NO2 and the methane over here. That means these are all chemical compounds. But we also said an explosive could be a mixture, like a mass of let us say fuel and oxidizer together. Therefore, let us take a look at some typical substances which are not chemical compounds, but they are a mass of a mixture, and let's see how these could be formed. Let us go ahead and take a look at one or two substances. We have been looking at maybe the ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate, when we saw, was equal to NH4 NO3. Well, if I look at ammonium nitrate, well, N is neutral, that means N2 over here, 2N. I have 4 of H, which can form 2 H2O, that means 4 of H, it requires 2 oxygen. That means even if I form something like N2 plus 2 H2O out of this particular decomposition, I am left with half O2. That means I could use ammonium nitrate as an oxidizer because it has excess oxygen. So also if I look at KNO3, well, I could form K2O and maybe the nitrogen is left out, and then I still have 2.5 of O2. That means I have 3 O2. 3 O2 means 3 by 2. That means 2 of oxygen is left. Therefore, 1 of oxygen molecule is left. Therefore, I am still rich in oxygen. That means KNO3 may be even sometimes better than NH4NO3. And in fact, I can use KNO3, which now has a lot of oxygen in it, 2 oxygen atoms compared to even ammonium nitrate, which has this. And you will recall in the explosion of the Texas City disaster, wherein ammonium nitrate was there in the hull of the ship, something like 7,700 tons of it, and it exploded. What happened is you formed all these substances, heat got released, and therefore you had an explosion. That means it is very oxygen rich substance. KNO3 is even richer, and since KNO3 is rich as it is in oxygen, I can use it. I can use KNO3 plus I add carbon to it. I also add little bit of sulfur to it, maybe carbon in the solid form. I add sulfur again in the solid form. Anyway, KNO3 is a solid. I mix the 3 together, and this mixture is what is known as a black powder. The composition of black powder is 75%, let me put it down below, 75% of KNO3, carbon is 15%, and sulfur is 10%. This black powder is again an explosive substance, and it is used for making the firecrackers. All the crackers we make is generally out of this black powder, and therefore it consists of KNO3 75% by weight, 15% carbon charcoal powder by weight, and 10% of sulfur by weight. Therefore, what is going to be the chemical composition of this particular black powder? That means it is again, compared to a chemical compound, it is a mixture of these 3 substances as a mass of a substance. Therefore, if I were to look at black powder and if I have to look at the chemical composition, Well, what is the molar mass of KNO3? K has an atomic mass of 39, nitrogen has 14, O has 16, and therefore KNO3 is 39 plus 14 plus 16, these are 48. Molar mass comes out to be equal to 75, that is 75 gram per mole, that is the molar mass. 48 plus 14, 52, 62, 62 plus 39, no, it is 101. 16 threes are 48, 52, 62, 62 plus 39 is 101 gram per mole. That is the molar mass of KNO3. Carbon has a molar mass of 12, sulfur has a molar mass of 32 gram per mole. Therefore, this particular composition I would like to convert it into a particular substance in terms of the molar masses, because I would like to find out what are the products of combustion and what is the heat generated. Therefore, denoting that this is 101, and if I consider, let us say 100 grams of this particular black powder, the number of moles of KNO3 in 100 grams is going to be 75 grams divided by 101, so many moles. I have something like 15 grams divided by 12, so many moles of carbon. I have sulfur, which is 10 grams divided by 32, so many moles. And now if I put the molar composition over here, I have, this gives me 0.743 moles of KNO3 plus 15 by 12 is 1.25 moles of carbon as a solid, plus 10 by 32 is 0.313 moles of sulfur as a solid, and therefore the chemical formula for this black powder will be 0.743 KNO3 plus 1.25 of carbon in solid form plus 0.313 of sulfur in the solid form. And if I relate it to 1 mole of KNO3, I can write it as KNO3 plus 1.25 by 0.743, which gives me 1.69 carbon plus 0.312 by 0.743, which gives me something like 0.42 of sulfur. This is the composition of black powder by moles. Therefore, if I want to take a reaction of this particular black powder, I say, well, I have KNO3 plus 1.69 carbon plus I have 0.42 sulfur, and I have to find out what are the products to find out what is the energetics of it. I can tell myself, now I do not have any hydrogen here, but I know K, potassium is very reactive. Maybe it could form something like K2O, and what I could form is I have 1 K here, it is going to form half K2O, and then if it is going to combine here, I have 3 of the oxygen atoms, out of which I have used 0.5 of the oxygen atom. Therefore, I am left with 2.5 of the oxygen atoms. And if I look at carbon over here, if it has to form CO2, I require 2 into 1.69, that is equal to 8, 6 2s are 3, 6 2s are 12, 13, carry on 3.3 of O atoms, but I have only 2.5. Therefore, this particular composition we find is fuel rich, and therefore, I cannot form CO2, and what it can form is, maybe it has to form CO. That means I have 1.69 of CO, which is possible, but if I form 1.69 of CO, I have 2.5 of oxygen which is still left for me, and out of which I have 1.69 of CO which is formed, I am left with something like 0 here, 1, I have 6/8 of 14, 0.81 which is still left, and therefore, I get some carbon dioxide which corresponds to 0.81, and 1.69 minus 0.81, 8, 8s are 16, 0.88, I have 0.88 of carbon monoxide, plus of course I have sulfur. Therefore, I get products of combustion like this. I know the heat of formation of K2O, I know heat of formation of CO, I know heat of formation of CO2, sulfur is an element. I can find out the heat of this particular reaction and the heat generated by 1 gram or 1 kilogram of the black powder. If I take KNO3, the heat of formation of KNO3 is largely negative, minus 495 kilojoule per mole, and therefore, the energetic of this particular substance is not as high as we would like it to be because it is large and negative, but still it has substantial energy release of the order of almost 2000 kilojoules per kilogram of the mixture, and it is this black powder, as I said, which is used for making firecrackers. While discussing this, we also found that even this particular mixture, what is used in practice, consisting of 75% by mass of KNO3, something like you have 1.69 C, which corresponds to 15% by mass of carbon and 10% by mass of sulfur, this is still fuel rich. And in general, if you were to see whether the propellants what we have discussed so far, including these compounds what we have discussed, we should find out whether it is fuel rich, whether it is oxidizer rich, and we know that the heat released is a maximum when completed products of combustions are formed or when the composition is stoichiometric. Therefore, we would like to first debate whether the different compounds we have formed, let us say the organic explosives, maybe the inorganic explosives, and we just took an example of mixture of certain substances like we had KNO3 with carbon and sulfur to form black powder, we say is something like fuel rich. Let us take one more mixture. We could have ammonium nitrate, which I just illustrated a little later, ammonium nitrate. I can use it, see, ammonium nitrate is an oxidizer. I can mix it with fuel oil like diesel or some heavy oil, and now I get ammonium nitrate and fuel oil is known as ANFO. And this ANFO is again an explosive. Now it consists of oil and crystal. It's a slurry explosive, and it's used for blasting rocks. It has also been widely used by the terrorists for planting bombs, but that is something which we have to guard against. But anyway, ANFO is also an explosive. And the composition of ANFO is typically, again, fuel rich. We have something like almost like 90% by mass of ammonium nitrate and something like 10% of the fuel oil in ANFO. Well, these are the different types of explosives, and we wanted to see how many of these explosives are fuel rich, whether it is stoichiometric, whether we can improve the quality of the explosive. Now let's start again from the beginning. Let's take one or two examples. Let's take the example of nitromethane. If we take nitromethane, well, we are talking of CH3 NO2. This was the formula for nitromethane. Should we say this is fuel rich, or is it oxygen rich, or say oxidizer rich, or is it stoichiometric? How do I decide on this? Immediately I tell myself, supposing completely oxidized products of combustion are going to be formed, I should be able to form from one atom of C, I should be able to form CO2. From the 3 atoms of hydrogen, I should be able to form 3, that means 1.5 H2O, that means 3 of H with O, and therefore, to form completely oxidized products of combustion in nitromethane, I should have had oxygen equal to 2 plus 1.5, which is equal to 3.5 oxygen. But what I have is only 2. That means only two atoms of oxygen are available as compared to 3.5 required if I want to have completely products of combustion. That means for stoichiometric mixture of this particular composition, well, I should have 3.5 atoms of oxygen, but I have only 2, and therefore I can say in methane, that is in nitromethane, I will have the oxygen atoms are available is 2. If I wanted stoichiometry, I should have had 3.5. Therefore, the oxygen index I can denote by a word zeta. I say zeta is equal to available divided by stoichiometry, and this 2 by 3.5 is something like 0.57. Therefore, we say that the nitromethane has oxygen deficiency, that is, it is fuel rich, and the oxygen deficiency zeta is 2 by 3.5, which is 0.57. Let us take one more example such that the evaluation of zeta, namely the available oxygen divided by the stoichiometric for that particular type of composition, if I were to put it again and call it by the term zeta, let's take a look at, let's say, nitroglycerine. Well, nitroglycerine, let's first write the formula. It is equal to propane triol C3H5OH3, in which I have ONO2 3. Propane OH3 is propane triol glycerine. I remove the OH by ONO2, this becomes nitroglycerine. And now I want to find out whether it is an oxidizer rich or fuel rich, and therefore now I say for 3C I need to form 3CO2, that means 6O. I have 5 of hydrogen atoms, therefore I have 5.5, that means 2.5 of H2O. That means I need 6 plus 2.5, that means I need 8.5 of O atoms to form completely oxidized products of combustion, namely 3CO2 plus 5 by 2 H2O. But what I have is 9 O atoms. Apparently, I have more oxygen than what is required for stoichiometric combustion of this particular compound, and therefore, the zeta content, that is the oxygen available, is 9. To be able to form fully oxidized products, I need 8, and therefore, the zeta is equal to 9 by 8, which is equal to 1.06. Therefore, we find while nitroglycerine is oxygen rich with zeta of 1.06, the nitromethane is fuel rich by 0.57, and like this we will be able to calculate the amount of oxygen which is available in the different explosives, and let's see this on a slide. I show in this particular slide the value of the oxygen fraction zeta. In maybe nitromethane, we found it was 0.51. Nitroglycerine, we just said it's equal to something like 1.06. Well, if I have nitroglycol, it's exactly stoichiometric 1. Nitrocellulose is again fuel rich, that means the zeta value is 0.63. PETN, that is pentaerythritol tetranitrate, has a value of 0.86, again fuel rich. The aliphatic cyclocompounds RDX and HMX has again 0.66, and when we look at the aromatic substances, maybe TNT, picric acid, tetryl and TATB, well, it's all fuel rich. That means in general, most of the condensed phase explosives, these are where the hydrocarbon based or organic based explosives, generally it's fuel rich except for nitroglycerine, which is oxygen rich. We also show in this particular table the value of heat of formation, and we find, well, heat of formation is generally negative. In case of nitroglycerine, it is minus 380, which is large and negative. RDX and HMX has positive values of heat of formation, which means they may tend to dissociate a little faster compared to these particular ones, since it's positive heat of formation. But if you look at the heat of combustion per se, you find from this very interesting type of data. You find, see, when you have oxygen fraction of 1.06, that means it is slightly greater than stoichiometric, the heat of combustion is maximum. If you have if it is something like fuel rich 0.57, the heat of combustion is lower, and if it is 0.63, it is lower, 0.86, it is not as high as this. Therefore, we can say for this class of maybe the aliphatic compounds in this particular case, when we go towards stoichiometry, the heat of combustion slightly increases, because when you have stoichiometry, you have 6.3, it is also near to stoichiometrics, maybe 7,000, well, it's fuel rich, well, it has come down over here, and therefore, we find that the heat of combustion for fuel rich substances is on the low side, because incomplete products of combustion are formed. When you compare this with RDX and HMX, well, these are fuel rich, and again the heat of combustion is little lower, 5600 and 5630 over here. But when you look at aromatic substances, in general for all aromatic substances, it is terribly fuel rich and the heat of combustion is also low. Therefore, let us take the two cases, namely the aliphatic based explosives and also the aromatic based explosives, and plot, let us say, the heat of combustion as a function of the deficiency of oxygen, which I show. This shows, in this I have also included the cyclo based explosives, namely the cyclo trimethylene trinitroamine, cyclo tetramethylene tetranitroamine, that is HMX is over here, RDX is over here, PETN is over here, nitroglycerin was over here. As the oxygen content increases, well, the heat of combustion increases. We are talking in terms of megajoules per kilogram. So also, if I were to look at the aromatic compounds, well, it does not increase so steeply, but there is a tendency to increase. It's very difficult to say whether it's increasing or not, but in general, there seems to be a small increase with the oxygen concentration. But in the case of the previous one, wherein you talked in terms of aliphatic and cycloaliphatic substance as well, there is a perceptible increase. Therefore, because of this particular increase, there is a tendency, and we will just consider this particular example on the board. If I can make a fuel rich explosive, that means I take something like an explosive like nitromethane, I take, which I know has zeta, we said is something like 0.67, which is oxygen deficient. I take something like nitroglycerin, for which I have excess oxygen, something like 1.06. Now, if I can combine nitromethane with nitroglycerin, and now see, nitroglycerin is both are liquids, and I form a slurry of both these things, something form a gel of this particular, and this is known as something like a gelatin. It's a gel substance, and it's much more energetic than nitromethane. Nitromethane plus something like ammonium nitrate, which is something like a liquid and a solid, something like a slurry type of an explosive. And therefore, the tendency is to use somewhat oxygen rich, a mixture of fuel rich and oxidizer rich, increase the oxygen content and make the particular explosive to be more energetic. And we do that by adding maybe the oxygen rich substances or oxygen rich explosives like nitroglycerin, or adding something like ammonium nitrate, or you had KNO3 to some fuel rich explosives and form a slurry of the explosives, and these are also used to create more energetic explosives. Having seen the role of maybe the oxygen index in an explosive, we also saw something like a mixture of ammonium nitrate plus carbon plus sulfur giving you something like a black powder. We also looked at slurry of ammonium nitrate and fuel oil which can be used. Let us now take a look at some of the characteristics of something like the inorganic explosives. We have seen the energetics of the organic explosives. Let us take a look at the energetics of the inorganic explosives. I show this in one of the slides here. Let's try to get that going. I think this particular slide was what we basically saw on the board, namely ammonium nitrate is oxygen rich, and if you look at the oxygen index of ammonium nitrate, it is something like 1.5. Let's derive this, because this is basic to what we are trying to learn. Namely, if I take a look at ammonium nitrate, we said it could form something like K2O plus N2, half N2, half K2O, plus you have something like oxygen which is left out, and this is for KNO3. If I look at ammonium nitrate, NH4NO3, I'm looking at maybe the products could be something like H2O, completely products of combustion are 2H2O, and I have 4H and 2O over here. I am left with an O, I am left with N2. Therefore, we find that oxygen is in excess, and the oxygen what I have is 3. If I want to form completely products combustion, I do not need O here, what I need is 2, and therefore, what is existing is 3. For stoichiometric combustion I need 2, and therefore, the zeta for ammonium nitrate is 3/2, which is 1.5. Therefore, now I can combine this excess oxygen with something like a fuel oil. I have ANFO. That is what is done. The heat of formation of the ammonium nitrate is of the order of -183. The energy released during decomposition of AN is typically, you have the products H2O, N2O, it is something like 4860 kilograms per kilojoules per kilogram. Therefore, if I have nitromethane, which we saw is fuel rich, with a value of zeta, namely the oxygen deficiency, if it is 1 it is stoichiometric, it is 0.57, it is fuel rich. I make a slurry of solid suspension of ammonium nitrate in nitromethane, it is much more energetic, and this slurry is sometimes used even for blasting, and it has also been used, as I said, for causing some heavier damage by blast waves. Oxygen rich we already saw, nitroglycerine to nitrocellulose we form a gel substance, it is known as gelatin dynamite. And when we talk of ammonium nitrate fuel oil, we said 90% or 94% ammonium nitrate and 6% fuel oil is ANFO, which is again an explosive. Ammonium nitrate is oxygen rich, fuel oil is just a fuel, you combine them and form an explosive. Just like we increase the oxygen content, it is also possible for us to increase the fuel content. If we increase the fuel content, what is going to happen? The explosive is going to be less sensitive, that is, it is not going to be that energetic. And how do you reduce the oxygen content? By putting maybe some polymer in it, like polymer could be nylon, it could be some butadiene, it could be any of the polymer which we say. And when we add polymer to an explosive, we say we have plastic explosives. These plastic explosives are very useful in that they are not very sensitive. You have HMX and RDX, and these you have the substances known as maybe plastic based explosives, PBX, that means you have PBX of HMX, RDX, and these are not very sensitive, can be handled much more safely, and the polymer bonded explosives are less energetic and much safer to use. In fact, one of the polymers, instead of using, let's say, HTPB, hydroxy terminated polybutadiene, or carboxy terminated polybutadiene, or nylon, or some other substance, the Glazidel azide polymer has more energy and it's much more promising to be used for the polymer based explosives. These plastic explosives or polymer based explosives find use in the military for inflicting damage, right. Well, these are the types of explosives, and now coming back to the organic explosives like azides, fulminates, stephanites, what do we see? The heat of formation of these substances are quite positive. That means they tend to blow up quite fast compared to stephanate, which is large and negative. But we also see, compared to something like 5,000, 6,000 kilojoules per kilogram for the organic based explosives, these are something like almost 1/3 to 1/4 the value. Lead azide has something like 1,650 kilojoules per kilogram compared to something like almost 7,000 kilojoules per kilogram. Mercury fulminate has 1,755, lead stephanate has around 1,800 kilojoules. That means the energy release in some of these compositions are quite small. Therefore, we find that, well, the inorganic explosives do not liberate that much of energy as the organic explosives, but we also told that the N3 radical, the CNO radical, and when we talk of acetylide radical, they are just waiting to go. That means their sensitivity or to get an explosion started might be very much faster. We have to still consider that, and that's something which we are still left to do in this particular condensed explosives. Having seen all this, we can now summarize what little we learnt about explosives as being of organic base, inorganic base, slurry explosive consisting of solid and liquid explosive, or ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. We talk of inorganic explosives considering that inorganic substances like ammonium nitrate and KNO3 with carbon and sulfur could give you black powder. We have inorganic base substances, azides, fulminates, acetylides, stephanates. We had organic base, and we have said enough of it, namely the aliphatic and aromatic compounds consisting of nitromethane, nitroglycerin, PET, and RDX, HMX. You have picric acid, trinitrotoluene, the tetryl, this should have been YL, and the TATB. These are the different types of explosives, and we have seen their energy behavior, how to make it fuel rich. That means having polymer, we'll go back to that slide. We have something like a polymer bonded explosives or plastic explosives. We also said in terms of explosives having more energy by making them oxygen rich, right? Therefore, with this background, maybe it's time to put the explosive characteristics together, and that's what is shown in this particular slide over here. In this slide shows you the aliphatic, like I have nitromethane, nitroglycerin, these are liquid explosives. We are talking in terms of straight chain paraffin coming from pentane, that is PETN. We have paraffin based cyclo-based RDX, HMX. Similarly, we have aromatic and also the inorganic substances, and also slurry explosives like ANFO. If you look at the density content, well, the densities are not widely varying for both the aliphatic as well as cyclo as well as aromatic. The densities are in the same ballpark number, around 1500 to 1700 kilograms per meter cube. But if you look at the detonation velocity, this is where I have to spend a couple of minutes over here. And what do we say? When we talk in terms of Chapman-Jouguet detonation in solid explosive, well, it's the same thing which we talk of. Maybe we talk in terms of P, we talk in terms of 1 over rho. We say Well, this is the initial state of the explosive unburnt. We have something like a Hugoniot, which may be a different type of curve because this is something like a reaction Hugoniot. And to be able to get a Chapman-Jouguet detonation, well, I have to have a tangent to it. This becomes my Chapman-Jouguet velocity. And we can always get the Chapman-Jouguet velocity by solving the reaction Hugoniot and the Rayleigh line. And we can determine the Chapman-Jouguet velocity. Once I know the Chapman-Jouguet velocity, we learnt in detonations how to calculate the pressure behind the detonation. We found out how to calculate the density behind a detonation. And this Chapman-Jouguet velocity of a detonation and the pressure are shown in this particular slide for the different substances, and we find that maybe the paraffin based cyclo substances and PETN have somewhat much higher values of Chapman-Jouguet velocity, and also the pressure behind the detonation is of the order of 300 to 400 times the initial pressure, that is 300 times the atmospheric pressure. Here you have 300 MPa, that means almost like 3000 times the ambient pressure. And when I talk of these liquid explosives, well, it's somewhat smaller. When we go to the aromatics like TNT, picric acid, tetryl and TATB, the pressures are lower and also the detonation velocities are somewhat lower. Therefore, the maximum damage or the maximum detonation velocity and maximum pressure are obtained with RDX, HMX, PETN, and these are the substances which generate lot of energy because of the fast detonation what is available. That means the Chapman-Jouguet velocities are higher. When we go to inorganic substances, well, the values of the detonation velocities are smaller, and also that the detonation pressure is much lower. And if I go to the slurry explosive, well, the detonation velocity is almost similar to what we have for the inorganic explosives. But mind you, slurry is also inorganic, but the detonation pressures are very much lower. Therefore, we see that the Chapman-Jouguet velocities are a maximum with such type of maybe the cycloparaffin based substances, namely RDX and HMX, followed by maybe nitromethane, nitroglycol, followed by the aromatic substances, followed by the inorganic substances. Well, the inorganic substances have much lower velocities, much lower pressure behind them. They cannot cause that much damage, but one thing which we still have to see, because of the azide fulminate stephanate radicals being somewhat not that stable, they tend to get into a detonation much faster, and that is something we will have to characterize the explosives for. Well, these are the different properties of the different types of explosives, and to put things together, we tell ourselves, well, we looked at the different condensed explosives, both solid and liquid. We find, well, if the explosive is contains relatively more amount of oxygen, it has more energy in it. We also looked at the CJ velocity for detonation. We find maybe RDX, HMX have a higher CJ velocity and higher pressure in the detonation. We also find, well, the aromatic substances like TNT, the tetryl, picric acid have lower value of CJ velocity and also lower pressure, and similarly the slurry propellants also have lower. But when we looked at all these things, we found the inorganic substances, namely the azides, fulminates, the acetylides, have very much lower values of CJ velocity and also very much lower values of the pressure in the detonation which is formed in solids. Now, when we talk of these solid explosives, how do we initiate the explosion? Well, we have to form a shock wave in the solid, and this shock wave couples with the chemical reactions, and this is what drives the detonation. That means a shock induces chemical reactions couple with the shock to form a detonation wave traveling with the CJ velocity, and this is the CJ velocity we are talking of. And in some substances, the shock waves can be formed very readily. That means in the inorganic substances, a little bit of touch or a little bit of heat release is sufficient to start a shock wave. Therefore, most of the inorganic explosives which we dealt with are things which are very sensitive, and such type of inorganic explosives in which a detonation can form very easily are known as primary explosives. They are primary, anything can start. You touch it, maybe heat release starts a shock wave, and this shock wave combines with the heat behind it and it forms a detonation. Mind you, the pressure behind the detonation is still small, the velocity of detonation is still small, but it detonates very easily. When we talked of maybe RDX, HMX, they release lot of energy, but to be able to initiate a detonation in it, I need to start with a strong shock. The strong shock will generate the chemical reactions, and then it will drive a detonation. This detonation has a high speed, but then it generates lot of heat and a high detonation velocity, but I primarily require a shock, and this shock can be generated by a primary explosive. In other words, explosives like RDX, HMX, nitroglycerine, maybe PETN are what we call as secondary explosives, or rather, since they have high energy, it is also known as high explosives. Slurries of some substances, like we say black powder, carbon, we have sulfur plus KNO3, cannot really initiate a detonation, because even if I have a shock, it takes some time for the chemical heat to get liberated. The chemical reaction cannot couple with the shock, and no detonation is possible. Such type of explosives are known as low explosives. Therefore, one way of classifying the explosive is as a primary explosive, a high explosive. The high explosive requires a primary explosive to start a shock, and this shock can take it forward, while a low explosive cannot detonate. It is just like wood, which burns but which generates lot of energy, is it. One way to be able to arrest a detonation, we talk in terms of a critical tube diameter. If the diameter of your explosive is less than a critical threshold, well, the number of cells in the detonation are not sufficient to make it propagate fast. It can only go as something like a pseudo detonation, or rather, there is relief. Because of the relief, there is expansion, and this expansion cools it. Therefore, if ever we want to safely handle an energetic substance, well, its diameter must be less than the critical diameter. Well, this is about what we learn in the area of condensed explosives. To summarize, again we say, well, the explosives could be something like we say could be a straight chain type of explosive, maybe it could be a cycloparaffin based explosive, RDX, HMX, could be aromatic based explosive. We talked of TNT, Tretril, we talk of TATB, and we have explosives with organic base. And just to finalize the picture, we tell ourselves to be able to start a detonation, and most of the organic substances have high values of activation energy, and unless we have high activation energy, I cannot get an induction time and a spurt in energy release, and this is what really causes an explosive energy release, and therefore, maybe most of the explosives are associated with high activation energies, and you get explosive damage because of this spurt in the reaction. It is also possible theoretically to be able to shear off the radicals, and when you shear off the radicals, you start the chain reactions, and in this way you can also initiate a reaction. But we must remember there is a critical diameter to a solid explosive below which it cannot propagate a detonation. Well, to summarize the characteristics of explosives, we say, well, a low explosive like something like black powder does not detonate, it can only burn. A primary explosive such as the inorganic explosives comprising of azides, comprising of acetylides, comprising of fulminates, it detonates rapidly but does not generate much energy, whereas the high explosives or secondary explosives generate lot of energy, but it requires a strong shock to detonate. Well, this is all about condensed explosives, and maybe in the next class we will take a look at let us say the TNT equivalent. Suppose some explosion occurs in nature, how do you say what is the energy of this particular explosion or the TNT equivalence? Well, thank you.